Hyunwoo stared at the screen and felt his blood turn cold. The numbers made no sense. Objects the size of small cities were moving toward Earth at impossible speeds. He rubbed his eyes and checked again, but the reading stayed the same. 27. Massive shapes dropped out of hyperspace just beyond the moon and headed straight for his planet. The Seoul Command Center buzzed with activity as alarms screamed through the building. Hyunwoo had worked as a deep space monitor for 8 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The objects were not asteroids or comets. They moved with purpose, and their hulls reflected scanner beams in ways that suggested advanced technology. These were ships, and they were bigger than anything humans had ever built. General So Young burst through the command center doors with her staff close behind. Her face was grim as she studied the tactical displays. The alien vessels had spread out and were taking positions above major population centers. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, and a dozen other cities now had massive ships hanging in their skies like dark clouds. The aliens made no attempt to communicate. They simply appeared and began their work. The first city to fall was London. Bright beams of energy lanced down from the ship and struck key military installations with perfect accuracy. The Thames boiled where the beams touched it. Buildings that had stood for centuries crumbled to dust in seconds. Within an hour, the city was silent. New York fell next. The alien ship positioned itself directly above Manhattan and began a systematic bombardment. The humans tried to fight back, but their missiles exploded harmlessly against energy shields that surrounded the alien vessels. Fighter jets were swatted from the sky like insects. The city that never slept, would never wake again, Hyunwoo, watched the destruction spread across his screens. Seoul was next. The alien ship descended through the clouds like a falling mountain. Its shadow covered half the city as energy weapons charged with an ominous hum. He thought of his wife and daughter at home and wondered if he would ever see them again. The bombardment lasted exactly 72 hours. When it ended, every major military installation on Earth had been destroyed. Governments collapsed as their leaders fled or died. The aliens landed troops in the ruins of cities and began herding survivors into camps. The tall reptilian beings wore advanced armor and carried weapons that could cut through steel like paper. Dr. Jin Ho watched from his hiding place in the mountains as alien transports flew overhead. He had been a military engineer before the invasion. Now he was just another refugee trying to stay alive. The aliens had conquered Earth with the same cold efficiency they might use to exterminate pests. Humans were nothing more than insects to them. The Vorthak Empire had arrived to claim another world. Their ships were works of art and death combined. Sleek biomechanical hulls pulsed with organic patterns while energy weapons charged along crystalline arrays. These beings had perfected the art of conquest over countless worlds. Earth was just their latest prize, General So Young established, a resistance base deep in the Korean mountains where alien scanners could not reach. She gathered scientists, soldiers, and civilians who had escaped the initial assault. The mountain caves provided shelter, but resources were limited. They lived on emergency rations and melted snow while they planned their next move. The aliens seemed unstoppable. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything humans possessed. Their armor could deflect bullets and their weapons could level buildings. Individual Vorthak soldiers stood nearly 8 feet tall with natural scales that served as additional protection. They moved with predatory grace and showed no emotion as they herded humans into work camps. Commander Hyunwoo had survived the Seoul bombardment by pure luck. He was in the deepest level of the command bunker when the attacks began. Most of his staff died in the first minutes, but the bunker's shields held just long enough for him to escape through maintenance tunnels. Now he was one of thousands of refugees hiding in the mountains. The aliens established their primary command center in what remained of New York. The massive ship had landed directly on Manhattan Island and deployed structures that rose from its hull like metal trees. Vorthak engineers worked with mechanical precision to build mining facilities and processing plants. They had no interest in human culture or history. Buildings that had stood for generations were torn down to make room for alien machinery. Captain Min Ho led a small group of survivors through the ruins of Seoul. He had been special forces before the invasion, and his training kept his team alive in the devastated city. They moved at night and stayed hidden during the day while Vorthak patrols swept the streets. The aliens were thorough, but they followed predictable patterns. They searched the same areas at the same times every day. The work camps were monuments to alien efficiency. Humans were sorted by age and physical condition, then assigned to different labor details. The strong worked in the mines, extracting rare minerals that the Vorthak needed for their technology. The weak maintained equipment or processed food. The very young and very old were simply eliminated as useless. Dr. Haywan had been studying alien technology for 2 months when she made her first important discovery. The Vorthak were not individuals in the way humans understood the concept. They operated as a collective consciousness with limited independent thought. This explained their incredible coordination, but also suggested a potential weakness. The aliens sent regular reports back to their home fleet using quantum communication arrays. The messages were brief and efficient. Earth had been pacified with minimal losses. Resource extraction was proceeding ahead of schedule. The native population was being utilized for manual labor. Everything was going according to plan. Young Su worked in an alien factory assembling mining equipment. He watched the Vorthak supervisors carefully and learned how their technology functioned. The aliens were incredibly advanced, but they also seemed to lack imagination. Their designs were perfect but inflexible. They could not adapt when conditions changed. Tae-hyun had been a communications officer in the old Earth Defense Force. Now he listened to alien transmissions from a hidden receiver in the mountains. The Vorthak used sophisticated encryption, but their messages followed rigid patterns. Given enough time and computing power, human cryptographers might be able to break their codes. The resistance grew slowly in the first months after the invasion. Small groups of survivors found each other and began sharing resources. They had no weapons that could challenge alien technology, and no way to coordinate large operations. They were reduced to hiding and hoping the aliens would eventually leave. On their own, Yoonji worked in a food processing facility that fed both humans and aliens. She had been a biochemist before the war, and she studied alien physiology whenever possible. The Vorthak had different nutritional needs than humans and required specific trace minerals in their diet. This knowledge might prove useful someday. The aliens showed no interest in human culture or achievements. Libraries were destroyed to make room for storage facilities. Museums were stripped of anything containing rare metals. Art was meaningless to beings who thought in terms of pure efficiency. The accumulated knowledge of human civilization was being erased one building at a time. General So-young knew that conventional resistance was impossible. The aliens had every advantage in terms of technology, numbers, and firepower. But she also knew that humans had one quality the Vorthak seemed to lack. Humans could adapt and change when circumstances demanded it. This flexibility might be the key to eventual freedom. The Vorthak followed the same conquest pattern they had used on 12 previous worlds. Overwhelming force followed by systematic resource extraction. They had never encountered significant resistance from primitive species. Their methods had never failed, and they saw no reason to change their approach. Yun-woo studied captured alien equipment whenever resistance fighters brought back fragments from raids. The technology was incredibly advanced, but it also followed logical principles. Energy sources, weapon systems, and defensive measures all operated according to discoverable rules. Understanding these rules might lead to ways of defeating them. Alien occupation entered its 6th month with mechanical precision. Mining quotas were met exactly on schedule. Human workers were replaced when they became too weak or injured to be useful. The Vorthak showed no cruelty or kindness, only cold efficiency in everything they did. Earth was being consumed 1 ton of minerals at a time. Dr. Jinho realized that the aliens had made one crucial error in their conquest. They had assumed humans were too primitive to understand advanced technology. This assumption might prove to be their greatest mistake. Dr. Jinho spent 6 months studying fragments of alien technology in the mountain hideout. Each piece told a story about how the Vorthak built their machines. Their energy weapons used crystalline focusing arrays that could be disrupted by specific electromagnetic frequencies. Their armor had microscopic gaps between scales that occurred every few centimeters in predictable patterns. Most importantly, their communication systems operated on wavelengths that human equipment could detect and eventually decode. The breakthrough came when Jinho realized that Vorthak technology was built for perfection rather than flexibility. Every device performed exactly as designed with no room for variation or improvisation. This made their equipment incredibly reliable, but also predictable. Human engineers could study the patterns and find ways to exploit them, General So Young established communication networks between resistance cells using old ham radio equipment that the aliens had ignored. The Vorthak monitored sophisticated communication channels but paid no attention to primitive human radio signals. This oversight allowed resistance groups across Asia to share information and coordinate their activities. Yunji had been working in the alien factory for 8 months when she started her sabotage campaign. She introduced tiny flaws into every piece of equipment she assembled. A connector was installed backwards here, a circuit was damaged there, a screw was left slightly loose somewhere else. The defects were too small for Vorthak supervisors to notice, but they would cause failures weeks or months later. The sabotage spread through the human workforce like a virus. Workers in every facility began introducing subtle problems into alien equipment. The Vorthak attributed the increasing failure rate to human incompetence and simply replaced defective items. They never realized that the failures were intentional and coordinated. Captain Minho learned that Vorthak patrols followed exact schedules with no deviation. They walked the same routes at the same times every day and responded to problems in predictable ways. This rigid behavior made them easy targets for guerrilla attacks. His team began hitting isolated patrols and stealing their weapons and equipment. The first successful ambush took place in the ruins of downtown Seoul. Minho's team waited in a collapsed building while a 3-soldier Vorthak patrol approached their position. The aliens walked in single file exactly as they always did. When the lead soldier reached a predetermined point, the humans detonated an improvised explosive device made from scavenged alien power cells. The explosion killed 2 Vorthaks instantly and wounded the 3rd. Minho's team emerged from hiding and finished off the survivor before he could call for help. They stripped the bodies of weapons and armor, then disappeared into the urban ruins. The entire engagement lasted less than 2 minutes. News of the successful ambush spread through resistance networks and inspired similar attacks across the globe. Small teams of humans began targeting isolated alien patrols using tactics that the Vorthak could not predict or counter. The aliens had overwhelming firepower, but they could not be everywhere at once. Dr. Haewon made another important discovery while examining captured Vorthak communication devices. The aliens were not just similar to each other. They were actually connected through some form of biological quantum entanglement. Individual soldiers received instructions directly from command nodes and had little capacity for independent decision-making. This hive mind structure explained why Vorthak forces were so well coordinated, but also revealed a critical weakness. When communication links were severed, individual soldiers became confused and ineffective. They could follow basic programming but could not adapt to unexpected situations. Young Soo had learned enough about alien manufacturing processes to begin reverse engineering their simpler devices. He set up a workshop in an abandoned subway tunnel and started building hybrid weapons that combined human ingenuity with alien materials. The first successful prototype was a rifle that fired bullets accelerated by captured Vorthak energy systems. The new weapon was crude compared to pure alien technology, but it could penetrate Vorthak armor at close range. More importantly, it could be built using materials that humans could obtain and maintain. Young Soo began teaching other engineers how to construct similar devices while constantly improving the design. Commander Hyun-woo established an intelligence network that monitored alien communications around the clock. Human cryptographers worked in shifts to decode Vorthak transmissions and track their military movements. The aliens used extremely sophisticated encryption, but their messages followed rigid formats that made them vulnerable to pattern analysis. The intelligence breakthrough came when Hyun-woo's team successfully decoded a supply manifest being transmitted between alien facilities. The document revealed the locations of ammunition depots, fuel storage sites, and command centers that the IT humans had not known existed. It also showed that the aliens were experiencing increasing equipment failures and supply shortages. Tae Hyun led the first major sabotage operation against alien infrastructure. His team infiltrated a Vorthak power generation facility, and planted explosives made from repurposed alien energy cells. The explosion destroyed the primary reactor and knocked out power to 3 mining operations for over a week. The aliens responded to the sabotage by increasing security around critical facilities. They installed additional sensors and doubled guard patrols at important locations, but their response was predictable and rigid. Human infiltrators simply adjusted their tactics to account for the new security measures. Resistance cells began sharing information about Vorthak weaknesses and effective attack methods. They discovered that alien night vision was inferior to human capabilities in complete darkness. Vorthak hearing was sensitive to certain high-frequency sounds that could be used to disorient them. Most importantly, their armor had cooling vents that became vulnerable during extended combat operations. Dr. Jin Ho completed his first major breakthrough in alien technology when he successfully modified a captured Vorthak energy weapon to accept human-made power sources. The modified weapon was less powerful than the original, but it could be maintained and recharged using equipment that humans could build and repair. The modified weapons were distributed to resistance fighters across the Asian theater. For the first time since the invasion, humans had energy weapons that could match alien firepower on a limited scale. The psychological impact was as important as the tactical advantage. Human fighters finally had proof that alien technology could be understood, and defeated General So-young authorized the first large-scale attack against an alien position 6 months after the initial invasion. The target was a mining facility in the mountains of Korea that was isolated from major population centers. 50 resistance fighters armed with captured and modified alien weapons launched a coordinated assault on the facility. The attack began at dawn with simultaneous strikes on the facility's power generator, communication array, and main entrance. Alien guards responded according to their programming, but they were not prepared for the intensity and unpredictability of human assault tactics. The facility fell within 3 hours with minimal human casualties. The successful attack proved that organized resistance could defeat alien positions when properly planned and executed. More importantly, it demonstrated that human fighters could capture intact alien equipment and use it against its creators. The resistance had evolved from hiding and sabotage to active warfare. Yoonji's sabotage network had grown to include workers in over 200 alien facilities across the planet. Equipment failures were becoming so common that some Vorthak operations were shut down for maintenance more often than they were running. The aliens increased quality control measures, but they could not watch every human worker all the time. The resistance began coordinating sabotage campaigns with military operations to maximize their impact. When Minho's team planned an attack on an alien patrol, Yoonji's saboteurs would ensure that backup weapons and communication systems failed at critical moments. The combination of external assault and internal sabotage proved devastatingly effective. Captain Minho had trained dozens of guerrilla fighters in urban combat tactics specifically designed to counter Vorthak advantages. Human fighters learned to move unpredictably, strike from unexpected angles, and disappear before aliens could respond effectively. The key was never fighting fair or giving aliens time to use their superior firepower. Young-Su's workshop had become a major production facility for human-alien hybrid weapons. His engineers had learned to manufacture bullets that could penetrate Vorthak armor, explosives that could breach alien shields, and communication equipment that could intercept alien transmissions. The technology gap was closing one invention at a time. Dr. Haewon discovered that Vorthak biology was vulnerable to certain terrestrial pathogens that were harmless to humans. The aliens had evolved in sterile environments, and their immune systems had never encountered the bacteria and viruses that were common on Earth. This vulnerability opened up entirely new possibilities for biological warfare. The resistance had grown from scattered survivors hiding in caves to an organized military force capable of challenging alien occupation. They had weapons that could hurt their enemies. 2 years after the invasion, Young-Su had transformed his underground workshop into a major weapons facility. The hybrid technology he developed combined salvaged alien components with human engineering principles to create weapons that neither species could have built alone. His latest creation was an energy rifle that fired plasma bolts with the accuracy of alien weapons, but used power cells that humans could manufacture and maintain in field conditions. The new weapons changed everything about human resistance capabilities. Energy shields that had protected Vorthak soldiers for 2 years began failing under concentrated fire from multiple hybrid weapons. Alien armor that could deflect bullets crumpled under plasma bolts calibrated specifically to exploit weaknesses in Vorthak metallurgy. Most importantly, humans could finally fight on equal terms with their occupiers. General So Young coordinated the largest resistance operation in human history from her mountain command center. The plan was ambitious beyond anything attempted before. Simultaneous attacks would be launched against alien facilities on every continent, while sabotage teams disabled communication networks and supply lines. The goal was not just to damage alien operations, but to completely disrupt their command and control systems. President Jae-min had been elected by secret ballot among survivor communities around the world. The underground government he led had no territory or formal recognition, but it represented the will of free humanity. His administration coordinated resistance activities across national boundaries that no longer meant anything under alien occupation. Earth had become one nation united by common enemy and common purpose. The resistance communication network had evolved far beyond simple radio transmissions. Human cryptographers had successfully penetrated alien communication systems and learned to send false messages that appeared to come from legitimate Vorthak sources. This capability allowed resistance leaders to coordinate global operations while feeding disinformation directly into alien command channels. Pilot Soo-jin commanded the first human squadron to use captured alien aircraft in combat. The fighters were originally Vorthak patrol craft that had been shot down and rebuilt by human engineers. The hybrid aircraft combined alien propulsion and shielding with human flight controls and weapons systems. Most importantly, they could fly in patterns that no Vorthak pilot could predict or duplicate. The attack on Supply Convoy 7 demonstrated the new capabilities of human hybrid aircraft. Soo-jin led 12 converted fighters against a column of alien transports carrying vital equipment to mining operations in Southeast Asia. The convoy was escorted by 6 Vorthak patrol craft using standard defensive formations, Vorthak escort. Pilots expected the human attack to follow conventional tactics with predictable approach vectors and engagement patterns. Instead, Soo-jin's squadron scattered in all directions and attacked from impossible angles using flight maneuvers that violated every principle of rational air combat. Human pilots rolled inverted while firing, dove through their own explosion patterns and changed direction so rapidly that alien tracking systems could not maintain locks. The engagement lasted 18 minutes and ended with all 6 escort fighters destroyed and 8 transport craft captured intact. Human casualties were limited to minor damage on 3 aircraft. More importantly, the captured transports contained manufacturing equipment that would allow resistance workshops to build more sophisticated hybrid technology. Commander Tae-hyun had become an expert in psychological warfare against alien forces. He discovered that Vorthak hive mind psychology made them vulnerable to tactics that would be merely annoying to individual consciousness. Coordinated sonic attacks using modified human audio equipment could disrupt alien communication links and leave individual soldiers confused and disoriented. Psychological warfare campaign began with loudspeakers hidden throughout urban ruins that broadcast specific frequencies designed to interfere with Vorthak neural networks. The sounds were barely audible to human ears, but they caused severe discomfort and confusion among alien patrols. Soldiers would abandon their posts or become lost while trying to escape the sonic interference. More sophisticated psychological attacks involved feeding false information into alien communication networks to create confusion and paranoia among Vorthak commanders. Human intelligence officers learned to mimic alien communication patterns so perfectly that their fake messages were indistinguishable from genuine Vorthak transmissions. Orders were contradicted, supply requests were misdirected, and patrol schedules were altered to create gaps in alien security. Dr. Hae-won completed her research into Vorthak biological vulnerabilities and began developing weapons based on terrestrial pathogens. The aliens had no natural resistance to common human diseases because their species had evolved in completely sterile environments. A modified version of the common cold virus could kill a Vorthak soldier within days while remaining completely harmless to humans. The biological weapons program required extreme secrecy because the aliens would take devastating countermeasures if they discovered what humans were planning. Small teams of volunteers were infected with modified pathogens and sent to work in alien facilities where they would spread the diseases through casual contact. The Vorthak never suspected that their human workers were carrying biological weapons, Captain. Minho had trained over 300 guerrilla fighters in advanced urban combat techniques, specifically designed to counter alien advantages. His fighters learned to use the ruins of cities as weapons against their occupiers. Collapsed buildings became sniper positions, subway tunnels became supply routes, and sewer systems became highways that allowed human forces to move unseen beneath alien patrols. The guerrilla fighters had also learned to exploit Vorthak's psychological weaknesses in ways that went beyond simple ambush tactics. Human fighters would deliberately sacrifice themselves to complete missions in ways that alien hive mind psychology could not comprehend or predict. A single human with enough explosives could destroy an alien facility by walking directly into it while ignoring all rational self-preservation instincts. Yunji's sabotage network had expanded to include workers in every major alien facility on the planet. The campaign of deliberate equipment failures had evolved from simple mechanical problems to sophisticated attacks on alien computer systems and manufacturing processes. Human workers had learned to introduce programming errors that would not manifest until months after the sabotaged equipment was deployed. The cumulative effect of 2 years of sabotage was becoming impossible for the aliens to ignore. Equipment failure rates had increased by over 300% since the initial invasion. Manufacturing schedules were constantly delayed by quality control problems. Most seriously, the aliens were losing confidence in their own technology because they could not explain why previously reliable systems were failing so frequently. Jin Ho had successfully reverse-engineered enough alien technology to begin manufacturing purely human versions of Vorthak equipment. His workshops could now produce energy weapons, force fields, and communication devices that matched alien performance, while using materials and manufacturing processes that humans could maintain independently. The technological gap that had made conquest possible was disappearing. Youngsu's weapons production had expanded to include heavy equipment, capable of challenging alien vehicles and installations. His engineers had developed rocket-propelled grenades that could penetrate Vorthak tank armor, artillery shells that could breach alien fortifications, and most importantly, portable energy weapons that infantry could use to destroy alien aircraft device. First major test of human heavy weapons came during the liberation of the industrial city of Pusan. Alien forces had converted the port facilities into a major shipping center for extracted minerals. The installation was defended by 12 Vorthak tanks, 30 patrol craft, and over 200 infantry soldiers, supported by automated defense systems. The human attack began with simultaneous strikes on alien communication arrays and power generation facilities. Within minutes, the defenders were blind and operating on emergency power. Human artillery teams then began systematic bombardment of alien positions, using shells designed specifically to penetrate Vorthak armor and shielding. The siege lasted 6 days and ended with complete human victory. Every alien defender was killed and all their equipment was captured intact. The port facilities were largely undamaged and could be converted to support human operations. Most importantly, the victory proved that properly equipped human forces could defeat entrenched alien positions through conventional military operations. General So Young realized that humanity had reached a crucial turning point in the resistance war. Human forces were no longer limited to guerrilla tactics and sabotage operations. They had developed the weapons, tactics, and organizational capabilities needed to challenge alien occupation through large-scale military campaigns. The aliens were finally beginning to understand that they faced something unprecedented in their conquest history. Previous species had either been completely destroyed in the initial assault or had accepted subjugation without significant resistance. Humans were doing something that Vorthak psychology could barely comprehend. They were adapting. 3 years after the invasion, the Vorthak found themselves trapped in a situation they had never experienced in their conquest history. Their requests for reinforcements went unanswered because the resistance had been intercepting and altering all communications with the home fleet. As far as their empire knew, Earth was a successful colony generating profits ahead of schedule. Dr. Dong Hyuk had weaponized 17 different human diseases into biological agents that specifically targeted Vorthak physiology. The aliens' advanced medical technology could heal injuries and repair mechanical damage, but it was completely helpless against viruses that evolved specifically to exploit weaknesses in their immune systems. What humans considered minor illnesses became death sentences for beings who had never encountered biological warfare. The biological weapons campaign reached full effectiveness when modified influenza viruses began spreading through alien populations faster than their medical systems could respond. Entire facilities were abandoned as Vorthok personnel became too sick to work. The aliens tried quarantine procedures, but the diseases had already spread beyond their ability to contain. General Kyung-hwa commanded the largest human military force assembled since the invasion began. 3,000 fighters armed with hybrid weapons and supported by captured alien vehicles, prepared for simultaneous attacks on every major Vorthok installation on the planet. The operation would either liberate Earth or destroy the resistance. In a final desperate gamble, the global assault began at exactly midnight Greenwich time, when resistance cells on every continent launched coordinated attacks. In New York, human forces surrounded the primary alien command center, while sabotage teams cut power and communication lines. In Tokyo, guerrilla fighters emerged from the ruins to attack supply depots and manufacturing facilities. Similar scenes played out in cities across the world as humanity finally went on the offensive. The New York Command Center had been built inside the alien mothership that served as the Vorthok headquarters for the entire planet. The massive vessel contained the most advanced technology in the alien fleet and housed over 2,000 Vorthok personnel. Capturing it intact would give humans access to star charts, communication codes, and manufacturing capabilities that could change the balance of power permanently. General Kyung-hwa's assault on the command center began with artillery bombardment using shells designed to penetrate alien shielding without destroying the ship's internal systems. Human fighters had learned that Vorthok defensive systems were programmed to protect against external threats, but they were vulnerable to attacks that came from multiple directions simultaneously. The battle for the command center lasted 18 hours and involved every advanced tactic that humans had developed during 3 years of resistance warfare. Biological weapons weakened the defenders while sonic attacks disrupted their communications. Hybrid vehicles provided fire support, while infantry teams used guerrilla tactics to infiltrate the ship's interior. Human fighters demonstrated something that alien psychology could not comprehend or counter effectively. They willingly sacrificed themselves to complete missions that served strategic goals rather than individual survival. Soldiers would charge directly into enemy fire to plant explosives or hold positions that allowed their comrades to advance. This behavior violated every principle of rational self-preservation that governed Vorthok military doctrine. The aliens fought with desperate courage, but they were psychologically unprepared for the intensity and unpredictability of human assault tactics. Vorthok soldiers had been programmed to follow specific combat procedures that assumed their enemies would behave according to logical principles of military science. Humans ignored those principles completely. Lieutenant Boram led the team that captured the command center's main computer systems. She had been a software engineer before the invasion, and she understood enough about alien technology to extract critical information from their databases. The files she recovered contained star charts showing the locations of every Vorthok colony, communication codes for their entire fleet, and most importantly, detailed information about their home planet's defenses. The captured intelligence revealed that the Vorthok Empire controlled over 300 star systems and had conquered 47 different species during their expansion across the galaxy. Earth was just their latest acquisition in a campaign of conquest that had lasted for thousands of years. However, the files also showed that no conquered species had ever successfully resisted Vorthok occupation. Young-Su had developed manufacturing capabilities that allowed humans to build their own versions of alien starships using captured technology and salvaged materials. The first human-built vessel was a hybrid design that combined Vorthok propulsion systems with human engineering principles. The ship was smaller and less elegant than pure alien technology, but it was something that humans could maintain and operate independently. The space warfare capabilities that Young-Su developed gave humanity their first real chance to challenge Vorthok control beyond Earth's atmosphere. Human-built fighters could intercept alien supply ships and communication relays that had previously operated with complete security. More importantly, human pilots could fly in patterns that alien defensive systems could not predict or counter-engineer. Wu Jin supervised the construction of Earth's first interstellar communication array, using technology captured from the New York Command Center. The system allowed human intelligence officers to monitor Vorthak communications across their entire empire, while continuing to send false reports that maintained the illusion that Earth remained under alien control. The deception campaign required unprecedented coordination between resistance cells around the world. Every aspect of human operations had to be concealed from alien observation, while maintaining the appearance that Vorthak forces were still in control. Supply shipments continued on schedule. Progress reports were filed regularly, and resource extraction appeared to meet all projected targets. Dr. Sunmi led a team of linguists and psychologists who had learned to perfectly mimic Vorthak communication patterns and thought processes. Their reports to the home fleet were indistinguishable from genuine alien transmissions because they incorporated actual Vorthak language structures and cultural assumptions. The deception was so complete that alien commanders never suspected that their Earth garrison had been eliminated. The final phase of human victory began when resistance forces captured the last major Vorthak stronghold in the Siberian mining complex. The facility had been defended by the most elite alien troops and the most advanced technology in their occupation force. Its fall marked the complete elimination of organized Vorthak resistance on Earth. Captain Sang-min commanded the first human expedition beyond Earth's solar system using a captured alien scout ship that had been modified with hybrid technology. His mission was to locate other worlds that the Vorthak had conquered and determine whether similar resistance movements existed elsewhere in their empire. The intelligence gathered by Sang-min's expedition revealed that the Vorthak had never encountered effective resistance from any conquered species. Their military doctrine was based on overwhelming technological superiority that had never failed in thousands of years of expansion. They simply had no experience dealing with opponents who could adapt and fight back with increasing effectiveness. Marshal Insu led the assault on the final Vorthak position on Earth when his forces surrounded the last alien garrison, hidden deep in underground tunnels beneath the ruins of Berlin. The defenders had been cut off from all supply and communication for 6 months, but they continued to resist using emergency protocols that governed Vorthak behavior in hopeless situations. The siege of the Berlin tunnels lasted 2 weeks and ended with the complete destruction of the last organized Vorthak force on the planet. No alien personnel survived to carry news of their defeat back to the home fleet. The conquest of Earth had been reversed so completely that the Vorthak Empire would never learn what had happened to their occupation force. Human intelligence officers continued sending reports to the Vorthak home fleet that indicated successful occupation and profitable resource extraction. The aliens received regular updates about mining operations, personnel assignments, and shipping schedules that painted a picture of normal colonial administration. They had no reason to suspect that every report was being written by the humans, who had destroyed their garrison. President Hyo Jin addressed the rebuilt United Nations in a ceremony that marked the official end of alien occupation. Earth was free, but it was also forever changed by 3 years of warfare against technologically superior enemies. Humanity had not simply survived the invasion, they had captured enough alien technology to transform their entire civilization. The victory celebration was brief, because human leaders understood that their war with the Vorthak Empire was just beginning. Earth had defeated the occupation force, but the alien home fleet controlled hundreds of star systems and possessed military capabilities that could destroy entire planets. The next phase of the conflict would be fought among the stars. Commander Hyunwoo analyzed the final alien transmissions before the command center was captured and discovered that the Vorthak had been. 5 years after the invasion began, Earth was free but completely transformed by the experience of defeating technologically superior enemies. The last Vorthak stronghold had fallen to combined human forces 6 months earlier, but the victory celebration was brief because everyone understood that the real war was just beginning. Marshal In-soo commanded the final assault on the underground alien fortress that had been carved into the bedrock beneath the ruins of Berlin. The complex had been designed to withstand nuclear bombardment and orbital strikes, but it could not resist human ingenuity combined with captured alien technology. The siege lasted 14 days and ended with the complete destruction of the last organized Vorthak presence on Earth. Not a single alien soldier survived to carry news of their defeat back to the Vorthak Empire. The conquest of Earth had been reversed so thoroughly that the home fleet would never learn what had happened. To their occupation force, 3,000 Vorthak personnel had simply vanished as completely as if they had never existed. Engineer Wu Jin supervised the construction of Earth's first interstellar fleet, using manufacturing facilities that had been captured intact from alien installations. The shipyards produced vessels that combined the best features of Vorthak technology with human innovations that alien engineers had never imagined. The hybrid designs were revolutionary in ways that neither species could have achieved independently. New human starships were smaller than comparable Vorthak vessels, but they were also faster, more maneuverable, and more heavily armed relative to their size. Most importantly, they could be maintained and operated by human crews who understood every system because they had built everything themselves. The technological dependence that had made conquest possible had been completely eliminated. President Hyojin revealed the final phase of humanity's strategic plan during a secret session of the rebuilt United Nations. The Vorthak Empire controlled over 300 star systems and had conquered dozens of intelligent species during thousands of years of expansion. However, their empire was also vulnerable because it was built on assumptions that no longer applied to their relationship with Earth. The deception campaign had been so successful that Vorthak commanders continued to receive regular progress reports from their Earth garrison. The messages were carefully crafted by human intelligence officers who had learned to perfectly mimic alien communication patterns and psychological processes. Every transmission reinforced the impression that occupation was proceeding normally, with resource extraction ahead of schedule. Dr. Sunmi led the team of linguists and behavioral specialists who wrote the fake reports that kept the Vorthak Empire believing that Earth remained under their control. The deception required incredibly detailed knowledge of alien culture, military, procedures, and administrative protocols. A single error in language or protocol could reveal that human agents were writing the messages. The fake reports served a purpose beyond simple misdirection because they provided intelligence about Vorthak operations throughout their empire. Human analysts could track fleet movements, identify resource requirements, and map communication networks by monitoring how alien commanders responded to the false information they were receiving from Earth Captain Sang Min, commanded Earth's first interstellar expedition using a hybrid starship that incorporated captured Vorthak navigation systems with human-built engines and weapons. His mission was to locate other conquered worlds and determine whether similar resistance movements existed elsewhere in the alien empire. The expedition's first destination was a star system that Vorthak records identified as Colony Designation 7, a planet that had been conquered 30 years earlier and was now a major industrial center producing equipment for the alien military. Sangmin's ship approached the system using captured identification codes that identified it as a routine supply vessel from the Earth garrison. The reconnaissance revealed that Colony 7 was defended by a modest fleet of patrol craft and orbital weapons platforms that were designed to prevent escape attempts by the conquered population, rather than invasion by external enemies. The Vorthak had never faced a military challenge from previously conquered species, and their defensive arrangements reflected that confidence. More importantly, the surveillance showed that the native population of Colony 7 was still alive and working in industrial facilities under conditions similar to what humans had experienced during the early stages of occupation. The aliens had followed the same conquest pattern they had used on Earth with identical results. The local species had been reduced to slave labor, while their planet was systematically stripped of valuable resources. Sangmin's team made contact with resistance cells on Colony 7 and discovered that the native species had been conducting sabotage operations for over 20 years. However, their efforts had been limited to minor harassment because they lacked access to advanced weapons and had no knowledge of Vorthak technological vulnerabilities that humans had learned through 3 years of intensive warfare. The contact between human and alien resistance movements led to the first interstellar alliance in galactic history. Earth would provide advanced weapons technology and tactical knowledge, while Colony 7 would serve as a base for operations against Vorthak installations in their local star cluster. The partnership proved that human techniques for fighting the aliens could be adapted by other species with appropriate support and training. Commander Tae-hyun established the first interstellar communication network, linking resistance movements on 6 different worlds that had been conquered by the Vorthak Empire. The network used captured alien quantum communication technology, modified with human encryption protocols that were impossible for the aliens to decode or trace. The intelligence gathered through the resistance network revealed that the Vorthak Empire was far more vulnerable than their military reputation suggested. Their forces were spread across hundreds of star systems with minimal reserves available for unexpected threats. More critically, their entire military doctrine was based on technological superiority that had never been challenged by adaptive opponents. Dr. Hae-won completed her analysis of Vorthak biological samples and developed targeted pathogens that could be deployed against alien populations throughout their empire. The biological weapons were designed to spread through Vorthak communication networks and supply chains while remaining completely harmless to other species. The aliens would face the same biological warfare that had been so effective during the liberation of Earth. Young-soo had reverse-engineered enough alien manufacturing technology to begin mass production of hybrid weapon systems that could be supplied to resistance movements throughout the galaxy. The weapons were designed to use locally available materials while providing capabilities that could challenge Vorthak military superiority on any world. The first major test of interstellar resistance coordination came when human forces supported a liberation campaign on Colony 12, a world that had been conquered only 5 years earlier and still maintained organized military resistance. The combined operation involved simultaneous attacks on Vorthak installations, while biological weapons disrupted their communication and supply networks. The liberation of Colony 12 required only 6 weeks of coordinated warfare because the OE, defending Vorthak forces, could not adapt to tactics they had never encountered before. Human-trained local fighters used guerrilla warfare techniques while captured alien technology provided firepower that could penetrate enemy defenses. The victory proved that human methods could be successfully exported to other resistance movements. General So-young coordinated liberation campaigns on 12 different worlds during the first year of interstellar warfare. Each victory provided additional resources, technology, and intelligence that strengthened the growing alliance of species that had been conquered by the Vorthak Empire. The aliens found themselves fighting wars on multiple fronts against enemies who shared knowledge and supported each other across vast distances. The psychological impact of successful resistance was as important as the military victories because it proved to conquered populations that the Vorthak were not invincible. Species that had accepted subjugation for decades began organizing their own liberation movements using techniques and equipment provided by the Earth-based Alliance. Marshal In-soo led the first direct attack on a major Vorthak fleet base when human forces assaulted the orbital facilities above Colony 7. The base contained over 50 alien warships and served as the regional headquarters for their entire sector. Its capture would provide the resistance with enough military equipment to challenge Vorthak control throughout an entire spiral arm of the galaxy. The attack on the fleet base involved the largest human military force assembled since the liberation of Earth. 200 hybrid starships supported by fighters from 6 allied species conducted a coordinated assault that lasted 3 days and ended with the complete destruction of the Vorthak garrison. The victory provided the Alliance with advanced starships that could challenge alien dreadnoughts on equal terms. President Hyo-jin established the Galactic Liberation Council as a formal government representing all species that were fighting against Vorthak occupation.